In the heart of a secluded forest, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the air was thick with mystery, there lived a young girl named Maya. She was no ordinary girl, her spirit was as wild as the winds that swept through the trees, and her heart was full of adventure. At just 13, Maya had already traversed the forest's many paths, fascinated by its beauty and its many hidden corners. She would often wander deep into the woods, collecting rare flowers or sitting in silence by the crystal-clear streams, listening to the quiet hum of nature. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Maya decided to venture farther than ever before. She had heard stories from the village elders about a mysterious part of the forest that was said to be home to creatures no one dared to speak of. No one ventured there, not even the bravest of hunters. But Maya's curiosity was a fire that could not be extinguished. With a backpack filled with some snacks, a small lantern, and a sense of determination, she set off alone, feeling the cool air wrap around her like a blanket. As she ventured deeper, the forest grew darker. The trees seemed to close in, their tall trunks casting long shadows that made her heart race. The sounds of the world seemed to fade away, replaced by the rhythmic rustle of leaves and the occasional call of an owl. Maya's steps were light, but her mind was heavy with anticipation. Her eyes darted to every movement in the bushes, her ears listening intently for any sign of life. The deeper she went, the more she felt the forest coming alive. It was as if the trees were watching her, their gnarled roots shifting and groaning beneath her feet. Maya's breath became shallow, but she pressed on, determined to uncover the secrets that lay beyond the familiar. The path she was following was narrow and barely visible, overgrown with vines and thorns. Yet, there was something about this part of the forest that called to her. After what felt like hours, she came across a small clearing. In the center stood an enormous tree, its trunk twisted and ancient, with branches that reached out like arms. It was unlike any tree she had ever seen before, its bark shimmering with an ethereal glow. Maya approached cautiously, her hand reaching out to touch the smooth surface. Just as her fingers brushed against the bark, she heard something, a low growl, deep and resonant, coming from somewhere nearby. Her heart skipped a beat. She froze, the hair on the back of her neck standing up. The growl grew louder, and then, out of the shadows, emerged the most incredible creature she had ever seen. It was a bear, but not like any bear she had ever heard of. Its fur was thick and silver, almost glowing in the dim light of the forest. Its eyes were piercing, like two glowing embers, and its size was almost otherworldly. It stood tall on its hind legs, towering over Maya, yet there was something almost gentle in its presence. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories of giant creatures living in the heart of the forest, but she never imagined she would encounter one. The bear studied her with its deep, intelligent gaze, as if it could see right through her. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't back away. Something inside her told her that this creature, though fearsome, was not a threat. There was an unspoken connection between them, a silent understanding that transcended words. The bear let out a soft grunt and lowered itself to all fours. Maya, still in awe, took a cautious step forward. She could feel her pulse quicken, but she was not afraid. The forest had always been a place of wonder, and this encounter was no different. She stood there, locked in the gaze of the creature, unsure of what would happen next, but certain that her life had just changed forever. To be continued. Maya stood frozen, her gaze never leaving the bear's eyes. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something extraordinary to unfold. Despite its towering form and the growl that had initially sent a chill down her spine, the bear's movements were slow and deliberate, almost as if it were considering her carefully. There was no aggression in its stance, no sign that it meant harm. For a long moment, the only sound in the air was the soft rustling of leaves as a breeze passed through the clearing. Maya felt a strange calmness wash over her. The fear that had gripped her at first began to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of curiosity and wonder. She took another cautious step forward, closer to the creature, but still keeping a safe distance. The bear lowered its head slightly, as if inviting her to come closer. Its enormous form cast a long shadow across the clearing, but Maya wasn't afraid. Her heart, which had been racing, began to slow as she felt an inexplicable trust towards the bear. It was as though it were trying to communicate with her, but in a language beyond words. Maya knew that her village's stories spoke of the forest's many legends, but nothing had ever prepared her for this moment. The elders spoke of spirit animals and guardians of the woods, but Maya had always dismissed them as mere fairy tales. Yet, standing here, face to face with this magnificent creature, she couldn't help but wonder if there was truth in those old stories after all. The bear raised its head again, its eyes still locked with hers. For a moment, Maya wondered if she should turn back. After all, no one ever came this deep into the forest, and no one had ever come back to tell of their adventures in this part of the woods. But something deep within her, something primal, told her that this encounter was meant to happen. Before she could think any more, the bear turned its massive body and began to walk away, looking back once to ensure that Maya was following. Surprised but intrigued, she took a hesitant step forward, her legs moving of their own accord. The bear's movements were fluid and graceful, like a shadow moving through the trees. Maya followed, captivated by the creature's presence and unsure of where it might lead her. As they moved deeper into the forest, the path became less clear, and the trees grew denser. The air felt cooler here, and the smell of moss and damp earth filled her senses. The bear moved with ease through the thick underbrush, seemingly knowing every twist and turn of the forest as though it had walked these paths for centuries. Maya tried to keep up, but the forest seemed to grow wilder with every step. Branches reached out like arms, and thorns tangled at her feet. She had to be careful not to trip over the roots that twisted out of the ground. But through it all, the bear led the way, its fur glistening in the dim light, its movements confident and sure. After what seemed like hours, they arrived at a small, hidden grove, unlike any place Maya had ever seen. The clearing was bathed in the soft, golden light of the setting sun, which filtered through the trees above. In the center of the grove stood an ancient stone structure, half covered in moss and vines. It was a stone circle, the kind Maya had heard of in the old stories, the kind that was said to hold great power. The bear stopped in front of the stone circle and turned to face Maya, its gaze intense, as if waiting for her to understand something she could not yet see. Maya's heart raced with excitement and wonder. She had stumbled upon something that few had ever set eyes on. This was no ordinary forest, and the bear was no ordinary creature. It was as though she had been brought here for a reason, and she had yet to uncover its purpose. As the light dimmed and the shadows grew longer, Maya realized that her journey into the unknown had only just begun. To be continued. Maya stood at the edge of the stone circle, her eyes wide with awe. The ancient structure seemed to hum with an energy she could almost feel vibrating through the air. The stones themselves were covered in centuries-old moss, their surfaces etched with markings that Maya didn't recognize. It was as though time had stood still here, preserving something sacred and forgotten by the world outside. The bear had stopped in front of the circle, its large body blocking Maya's view of the stones, but its presence felt like an invitation to uncover the secrets that lay hidden. Maya hesitated for a moment, wondering if she was truly meant to be here. But there was a pull inside her, something deep within her soul that urged her to move closer. Taking a deep breath, Maya stepped forward, her feet crunching softly on the earth as she crossed the threshold of the stone circle. The moment she did, the air seemed to shift. A faint breeze stirred the leaves around her, and the forest itself felt quieter, as if holding its breath. Maya's pulse quickened, and her hand instinctively reached out to touch one of the stones. The surface was cool to the touch, but as soon as her fingers brushed against it, she felt a strange warmth pulse through her body. It wasn't just physical warmth, it was something far deeper, like a connection being formed, a bond between her and the forest itself. Maya's breath hitched as she pulled her hand away, unsure of what she had just experienced. The bear, which had been watching her intently, gave a low grunt, almost as though it was encouraging her to continue. Maya's eyes darted around the stone circle. There were 6 stones in total, each one slightly different, but all of them exuded the same ancient power. The one she had touched seemed to glow faintly now, the markings on its surface shifting and changing before her eyes, as though they were alive. She couldn't make sense of the symbols, but something about them felt familiar, as though they were calling to her from a forgotten memory. "Do you know what this is?" Maya asked softly, her voice almost a whisper. She wasn't sure if she was speaking to the bear or to the forest itself, but she didn't expect an answer. The bear, however, let out a soft grunt in response, as though it had been waiting for her to ask. Maya looked at the bear, her curiosity piqued. There was no way she could understand this place alone. She needed answers, and she needed to know more about the creature that had led her here. The bear slowly walked around the circle, pausing at each of the stones. Maya watched carefully, noticing how the creature seemed to study each one, its gaze lingering on the markings. When the bear reached the final stone, it stopped and lowered its head, as if bowing in reverence. Maya followed its lead, walking up to the last stone in the circle. The moment her fingers touched the final stone, a surge of energy coursed through her entire body. This time, it was different. The energy was not just warmth, it was light. Brilliant, blinding light that seemed to come from within the stone itself. Maya gasped as the world around her shifted, her vision blurring as she was pulled into a new realm. The forest, the stones, the bear, they all faded away, and for a split second, she was surrounded by nothing but light. Suddenly, the light faded, and Maya found herself standing in a completely different place. The air was thick with magic, and the land before her was both familiar and strange. Towering mountains rose in the distance, and ancient ruins dotted the landscape. It was a place of forgotten history, a world lost to time. But there was something more, the land itself seemed to be alive, its very heartbeat pulsing beneath her feet. Maya's heart raced. What was this place? How had she gotten here? And what did it have to do with the bear and the stone circle? As her mind raced with questions, a soft voice, gentle and warm, yet ancient, spoke in her ear. You have unlocked the gateway. Now, the truth will reveal itself. Before she could respond, the voice faded, and the world around her began to shift again. The mountains, the ruins, and the magical land began to melt away, and Maya was pulled back into the clearing where the stone circle stood. But something had changed. The forest now seemed brighter, more alive, as if it had just been awakened from a deep slumber. And standing before her, the bear was no longer just a creature of the forest. It was something more, something ancient and powerful, a guardian of the land Maya had just glimpsed. Her journey had only just begun, but Maya knew one thing for certain, the forest had chosen her. And the secrets it held were waiting to be uncovered. To be continued. Maya stood at the edge of the stone circle, still reeling from the vision she had experienced. The world around her had shifted in an instant, revealing a land of mysteries and forgotten legends. But just as quickly as the vision had come, it vanished, leaving her standing alone in the now vibrant and alive forest. The bear, which had been so silent and enigmatic, stood still before her, its gaze unwavering, as though it had known this moment was coming all along. The air felt different now, charged with energy, like a storm waiting to break. Maya took a step back, her mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. The voice she had heard in the vision still echoed in her ears, a soft whisper that lingered in the quiet of the grove, "You have unlocked the gateway. Now, the truth will reveal itself." Maya looked at the bear, her heart beating faster as the weight of those words settled over her. The bear was no longer just a wild creature of the forest, it was something much more. A guardian. A protector. And it was clear that it had brought her here for a reason. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "What truth?" she whispered aloud, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking to the bear or to the forest itself. But the bear seemed to understand, its amber eyes softening as it took a few steps closer to her. Without warning, the bear sat down on its haunches, looking at her expectantly. It was almost as if it was waiting for her to make the next move. Maya hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward, drawn to the animal by a force she couldn't explain. The bear's presence was calming, yet powerful, and she knew that she was meant to stay, to listen, to learn. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. Maya gasped and looked around, but the bear remained still, its gaze never leaving her. Then, out of the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged, a figure Maya had never seen before. It was a woman, but not like any woman she had encountered in her village. She was tall, with flowing dark hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall of midnight. Her eyes were the color of the forest itself, deep green, almost otherworldly. And her skin glowed faintly, as if she were made of stardust. Maya felt an overwhelming sense of awe and reverence as the woman approached. The bear remained seated, watching intently, but there was no fear in the air, only a sense of inevitability, as though this meeting had been fated. The woman stopped just a few feet away from Maya and smiled warmly. "You have come," she said, her voice melodic and ancient, like the wind through the trees. "I have waited for you." Maya's heart raced as she looked at the woman. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am a keeper of the old ways," the woman replied, her smile deepening. "A guardian of the forest, as the bear is. We have watched over this land for centuries, keeping its secrets hidden from those who would misuse its power. But you, Maya, are different. You have been chosen to uncover the truth and to protect the balance." Maya blinked, unsure of what to say. "Chosen? But I'm just a girl. I don't understand. Why me?" The woman's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, placing a hand on Maya's shoulder. "You are no ordinary girl, Maya. You carry within you the blood of the ancients, the line of those who have protected the forest for generations. The power that runs through your veins is the same as the bear's, the same as mine. You are bound to this land, just as we are. And now, you must learn the truth of what has been hidden for so long." Maya's mind whirled as she tried to process the words. She had never known anything about her ancestry, never suspected that she was part of something much larger than herself. But as the woman spoke, something deep inside her stirred, a part of her that had always felt connected to the forest, to its quiet rhythms and ancient whispers. She had always felt like she belonged here, even though she had never been able to explain why. The woman looked over at the bear, who nodded slightly, as if in agreement with her words. "The forest is in danger," the woman continued, her voice growing more serious. "A great darkness is stirring in the heart of the land. Forces beyond our control are awakening, and the balance is threatened. The gateway you unlocked, Maya, is the only path that can lead us to the answers we need. But it is not a path without peril. To uncover the truth, you must journey further into the unknown, into the heart of the forest itself." Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She had always known that the forest was full of mysteries, but now she understood that these mysteries were not just stories, they were real. And the fate of the forest, of the land itself, rested in her hands. "I'm ready," Maya said, her voice steady despite the fear that churned inside her. "Tell me what I need to do." The woman smiled again, her eyes filled with pride. "You are wise, Maya. The journey ahead will be difficult, but you are not alone. The bear will guide you, and I will be with you in spirit. Trust in the forest, and it will guide you to what you seek." With that, the woman raised her hands, and the trees around them began to shift. The clearing where they stood glowed with a soft, ethereal light, and Maya could feel the presence of something ancient, something powerful, wrapping itself around her like a protective cloak. "Go now," the woman said. "The forest calls." To be continued. Maya's heart raced as the woman's words echoed in her mind. The forest calls. She felt it then, the pull of something deep within the earth, as if the very roots of the trees were reaching out to her, calling her to journey deeper into the heart of the woods. The bear, now standing tall, looked at her once more with those ancient, amber eyes, and without another word, it began to move. Maya followed without hesitation. The path ahead was unclear, the trees growing thicker and the air heavier, filled with the scent of pine and earth. But despite the growing darkness, Maya felt no fear. The presence of the bear at her side gave her strength, a quiet assurance that she was on the right path. She could sense that this journey was more than just a physical one, it was a spiritual voyage, one that would reveal truths she could never have imagined. As they traveled deeper into the forest, the landscape began to change. The trees that had once towered over her were now twisted and gnarled, their trunks covered in vines that seemed to pulse with life. The light was dimming, but it wasn't the setting sun that caused it, it was something else, something unnatural. The forest seemed to be growing darker, as if something was blocking the light from within. Maya looked over at the bear, whose steps had slowed. It seemed to be sensing the same thing. The deep growls that had been a soft background noise earlier now grew louder, more insistent, as if warning her of the danger that was drawing near. The tension in the air was palpable, and Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them from the shadows. The further they went, the more the forest felt like a labyrinth. Trees grew in strange, unnatural formations, and the ground beneath her feet was uneven, covered in thick roots that twisted like snakes. It felt as though they were being drawn towards something, a destination that Maya could not yet understand. Then, as they reached a clearing, Maya stopped in her tracks. In the center of the clearing stood a large, ancient tree. Its bark was dark, almost black, and it pulsed with a strange energy that made the air crackle. It was unlike any tree she had ever seen. The roots twisted outward, forming a large, circular opening at its base. The opening was dark, like an entrance to another world, and from it came an eerie, cold wind that sent a shiver down Maya's spine. The bear stopped in front of the tree, looking at it intently. Maya could feel the weight of its gaze, and it was as though the forest had fallen silent around them. She hesitated but then took a step forward. The moment her foot crossed the threshold of the clearing, the temperature dropped, and a deep voice rumbled through the air, sending vibrations through her chest. "You have come," the voice said, low and menacing. It didn't sound like it came from any one place, but from everywhere at once, resonating in her very bones. "The gatekeeper waits. Are you ready?" Maya's breath caught in her throat. The gatekeeper. The words the woman had spoken earlier came rushing back to her, the forest is in danger. Forces beyond our control are awakening, The voice continued, this time with a faint, mocking tone. You believe you can stop it? You are nothing but a child, lost in the shadows of the world that came before. Maya swallowed hard but stood her ground. She didn't know who or what the voice belonged to, but she wasn't afraid, not anymore. She had come too far. She had uncovered too much of the truth to turn back now. I am ready, she said firmly, her voice unwavering despite the chill that ran through her. The bear beside her let out a low, reassuring growl, its head slightly tilted, as though it too was waiting for something to happen. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, the ground shook, and the air around them seemed to twist and ripple. The dark tree before them began to shift, its bark peeling away like the layers of an onion, revealing a swirling vortex of shadows and light inside. It was a portal, one that Maya instinctively knew would lead her further into the heart of the forest, and to the truth that awaited. The voice, now more distant, echoed one last time, a final warning. You are the chosen one. But not all choices lead to salvation. The bear stepped forward, its massive form casting a shadow over the swirling portal. With a determined glance back at Maya, it entered the vortex without hesitation. Maya's pulse quickened. She had come this far, and there was no turning back. Taking a deep breath, she followed the bear, stepping into the darkness. The moment she crossed the threshold, everything went silent. No birds, no rustling leaves, no breeze. Just an overwhelming stillness that seemed to press in on her from every side. Then, slowly, a light began to emerge from the shadows, faint at first, like a distant star. The further she went, the brighter it became. And there, at the center of the light, stood something that Maya could never have imagined. A figure, tall and cloaked in a flowing robe, stood before her. Its face was hidden in the shadows of the hood, but the power emanating from it was undeniable. This was the heart of the forest, the source of all the energy and magic that had been locked away for centuries. "You have arrived," the figure said, its voice smooth and powerful. "The truth is within your grasp. But it comes with a price." Maya's heart pounded. The figure's words echoed in her mind. A price. To be continued. Maya's heart thundered in her chest as the figure's words echoed in her ears, lingering in the stillness that enveloped them. The light around her seemed to pulse with an energy she could not fully comprehend, a force so ancient and powerful that it made her feel both insignificant and vital at once. She felt the weight of the figure's presence, an intangible force that seemed to stretch across time and space. "The truth is within your grasp," the figure repeated, its voice echoing like a distant thunderclap, "but it comes with a price." Maya swallowed hard, her throat dry. She couldn't see the figure's face, but she could feel its gaze, penetrating, searching, as if it knew her deepest fears. "What price?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was she about to lose something? Would she be forced to sacrifice something she held dear? The figure remained silent for a long moment, its cloak shimmering with an ethereal light. Then, slowly, it stepped forward, and the air around Maya seemed to grow colder. She shivered, instinctively pulling her coat tighter around her, but there was no denying the gravity of what lay before her. "The balance of the forest has been threatened for ages," the figure spoke, its voice now carrying a sadness that Maya had not expected. "Dark forces have awakened from the depths of the earth, seeking to consume the light and power that resides here. It is you, Maya, who will either preserve or destroy the delicate harmony that has existed for centuries. But to do so, you must embrace your true power." Maya's eyes widened. She had always known she was different, drawn to the forest, as if it called to her in ways she couldn't explain. But the idea that she possessed some hidden power, some deep connection to the land, it was more than she had ever imagined. "You are the heir to the guardians," the figure continued, "born with the ancient magic of the forest flowing through your veins. The same magic that the bear holds, the same magic that I possess. But to unlock this power, you must give up what you hold most dear." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What must I give up?" The figure stepped even closer, its presence overwhelming. "Everything comes with a cost. You must choose, your connection to the world you know, or the forest you were born to protect. One path leads to safety, the other to a deeper, more ancient truth." Maya felt her legs grow weak as the weight of the decision pressed down on her. She thought of her village, her family, and the life she had known, simple, but full of love and familiarity. But then she thought of the forest, its ancient beauty, and the bond she had felt with it since she was young. She couldn't bear the thought of seeing it fall to darkness. "Choose," the figure said again, its voice a gentle command, as the swirling light around Maya grew brighter. "To protect the forest fully, you must sever the ties to your old life. To become the true guardian, you must let go of your place among the humans." Maya's mind swirled with confusion, her heart torn between two worlds. Could she really leave everything behind? Could she embrace the power that the figure offered, knowing it would mean saying goodbye to the life she had known? The bear, who had been standing silently at her side, gave a low growl, its amber eyes filled with a strange understanding. Maya looked at the creature, and something inside her clicked. The bear had chosen this path long ago. It had embraced the forest's power, becoming one with it. And now it was offering her the same choice. A wave of determination flooded over Maya. She couldn't let fear control her. The forest was calling to her, not as a stranger, but as a protector, as a guardian. She had always felt this connection deep inside her, and now, she realized, it was time to answer the call. With a deep breath, Maya stepped forward, her hand reaching out toward the light. "I choose the forest," she said firmly, her voice full of resolve. "I choose to protect it. I will become its guardian." The figure before her nodded, a slow, approving motion. "Then the forest shall be yours to command," it said, its voice now filled with power. "But remember, Maya, this choice is not without sacrifice. You will leave behind the world of men and become part of the eternal woods. You will be its heart, its protector, its soul. Your fate is now bound to the forests, and you will never be able to return to the life you once knew." Maya nodded, accepting the truth. She felt the bear's presence beside her, a silent support, as if it were welcoming her into the fold of the forest's ancient guardians. And then, the world around her seemed to shift. The light from the portal grew brighter, enveloping her completely. Her body felt weightless, as though she were floating in a sea of energy. The air around her crackled with magic as she felt something deep within her stir, something old, something powerful. It flowed through her veins, and she felt her senses sharpen. She could hear the whisper of the wind, the call of the birds, the heartbeat of the forest itself. The magic was awakening inside her, wrapping itself around her like a second skin. The figure spoke once more, its voice now distant. "You are the guardian now, Maya. The forest is yours, and you are its protector. You are one with the earth, and the earth is one with you." Maya's vision blurred as the light consumed her, and the world around her shifted once again. When the light finally faded, she found herself standing in the center of the ancient grove, the bear by her side. The forest was alive with energy, and Maya felt it flowing through her. She had made her choice. And now, she was the forest's protector, its heart, its soul, its guardian. And so, her journey had truly begun.